again. So the question now is that we're at, an important resistance level. 117k is a level that, we saw a pretty nasty rejection for Bitcoin previously. If we go back to, what was this, 23rd, 22nd of August, which is going back like 20 days now. We did get a pretty nasty rejection here. The immediate kind of, response to that level was minus 7.5% drop, and it took us only 3 days. And it actually, fully bottomed out at minus 8.7. So, pretty decent drop. I mean, that's like small to moderate. Definitely more on the small side. But, considering the general lack of volatility throughout this bull market cycle, I think that's still, it felt sizable for a lot of people. I know that a lot of crypto Twitter lost their shit again and started having to tell us all why we're entering a bear market. Oh man, and it's just also predictable. And to be honest, again, this comes back to like Adam's question about like where have I been, dude? Like, I'm just tired of it. I'm just tired of like saying the same shit constantly. And I figured that it's not really worth the time, So I was like, I'll just come on when something important goes on. You guys are mature enough to hold it down, while I'm not. But I'll do more, if the market heats up. We know the deal. Just had a tattoo sleeve done courtesy of a little profit I took. My arm is on fire. Wow, okay. I don't really know exactly what you mean by that, but congratulations. Good for you, I guess. AL says my take is 117.3 pullback. Monday we're going to be in the 120s, and on the 17th new all-time high. Hey, so that's really specific analysis, and I don't really like specific analysis because for me it's like you're stacking if statements one after the other, but it really makes sense. You're basically saying we're going to get rejected here, and then come early next week, which is basically like somewhere here, we're going to be back above like 120. I could totally see this, by the way. Like I agree with you. I mean, I wouldn't say this, especially on YouTube because I don't know. Like I said, you're stacking too many if statements here, but yeah, like this seems very plausible to me. And then we're looking at a new all-time high on the 17th, which would probably be in reference to the rate drops. So, rate drops, I was saying, is going to be a buy the hype, sell the news situation, but that hasn't happened. We haven't been buying the hype. So, I mean, it could definitely be a good sign, the rate hikes incoming. But I think the bottom line, before we even talk about any ideas like this, and by the way, I think it's definitely possible what you said. I don't really feel sure about any of that stuff right now. Other than, I feel pretty certain that, obviously we're headed to a very good place in this bull market. That's what I feel pretty sure of. But beyond that, I couldn't specify time frames, I mean, I would have been wrong, if I tried. But here's the thing, man. Resistance right here at, 117. Whether we get rejected here or not doesn't really matter. But let's say we do get rejected. We now have this level as support again. This level was support, pretty nicely. I mean, it literally, started a rally to the all-time high. So that, definitely has to count for something. It was support 3 times over here. And then it was support, 1 time, 2 times, I guess, over here. And so, I do think that this range is going to be back in play. The low kind of 112, somewhere around there. We probably have indicators lining up with that level as well. Let's take a look at that. 1 hour might be a little bit higher, yeah, but we'll definitely have the 4-hour Ichimoku cloud right there, forming exactly at this price level right here. No surprises there whatsoever. So, on these kind of like mid-range time frames here, there's definitely, take it easy, Adam, cheers. On this mid-range kind of time frame here, this is definitely a very reasonable level, I think, for Bitcoin to pull back to if it does get rejected at 117. And, if it doesn't, then we're back in another range. And this next range looks a little bit like this. But either way, I think the default is going to be ranging. I think these are the two kind of real possibilities right now. I guess the other possibility is obviously that we're hitting a kind of macro resistance level. We're punching in a new lower high, and, we're going to sweep the low. We're going to set a new low, and then, do something a little bit like this. That's definitely what the bears will want you to believe. But, I don't think that lines up with the S&P at all. You know, the S&P has popped to fresh all-time highs. And Bitcoin is, you know, 6.8% away from its all-time highs. And we understand how Bitcoin can pick up really quickly. Ladies and gents, if you're just tuning into the stream, smash up those likes. We've been very inactive on the channel. I need your help getting this channel back up and running. So I do appreciate anything there. Thank you very much. But, yeah, S&P 500 popping fresh to new all-time highs. Bitcoin coming up with it. You know, I don't see a situation where Bitcoin has taken a massive tumble like this bearish scenario I outlined over here. I don't see this happening unless the S&P also takes a shit. And good luck making that argument right now. You know, I mean, you don't really have much to go off, and any bears for the S&P 500 have been consistently proven wrong since Trump got elected. And they've been very vocal because, I don't know, they're just fucking full of their own shit. You know, and I think this is a very relevant post that we threw into the Telegram channel in response to that Apple AirPod 3, AirPod Pro 3. I don't even know what they call it. My sound is disappearing. Anyone else having that issue? My connection looks super stable. So let me know if anyone else is having that issue. It might be on your side, Chris. But Apple released these AirPods and they have live translation, which is really cool. You can talk to somebody in a different language and it'll just translate what they say in real time. So, you know, in this case, if we're talking to somebody retarded, you know, here's what it looks like. And I thought this was absolutely brilliant. You know, I mean, look, it's a resistance level up here. Thank you for the sound check. Chris, you might want to refresh the page, bro. Yeah, so, you know, that's kind of the you know, what happens if we get rejected. That's the bearish, you know, I mean, I don't see Bitcoin, you know, decoupling from the S&P 500, right? I mean, you know, I barely think it's decoupled right now. Gotta love push notifications. Let me know you're live again. Yeah, dude, absolutely essential having notifications on for a channel like this when we're going live. But, you know, I think that's really important. You know, a lot of people miss that. And I think it's because they're just unaware. They have tunnel vision analyzing crypto. I think a lot of people, you know, obviously joined this space being like pretty fucking broke, or maybe not even broke, but like mentally broke for sure. Especially in terms of basically financially illiterate is a better word, you know, for mentally broke. And a lot of people, you know, end up just carrying that with them, you know, everywhere. And when they bring that attitude to crypto, they, you know, they think that they can just sit on TradingView and scroll Binance a little bit and find a pair that's hot and click buy and make money. And they're not actually far off. I mean, it can be nearly as simple as that. So I understand where people get these ideas from. But, you know, I really think that we need to understand what truly moves these markets first. And it's been proven time and time again that that's the S&P 500. It's been proven time and time again that the S&P 500 is going to dictate the broad direction of Bitcoin. And, I mean, it's fucking going up, dude. You know, what else can I say? There's not really much to this. It's not really particularly complicated. Smash up those likes, ladies and gents. Let's get this thing to above 50. At least above 50 to kick this thing back off. But I think for sure, you know, like that's kind of just what we're seeing here. Now, if we take a look at Bitcoin dominance, this is getting interesting here, you know, because Bitcoin's dominance has only produced one pattern over the last period, and it is a pattern that looks something a little bit like this, to varying, you know, sometimes they're a little bit sharper, whatever, but we're kind of just doing the same thing. We're just forming these, you know, we trend lower, and then we form these continuation patterns, and then we trend lower, and then we form a continuation pattern, trend lower, continuation pattern. We've been seeing this go on for months. And look at this. I mean, this is exactly what Bitcoin is doing again. We've broken down again as well. So, you know, there's a few different ways to kind of measure if this is confirmed. I don't want to get too technical with it because it is only a secondary chart. It's Bitcoin dominance. It's not a coin. But, you know, when you break below by, you know, a certain threshold, call it 1%, you know, 1% is usually pretty significant on coins. For Bitcoin dominance, that level might be more like 0.3%. You know, that's going to confirm it. But another way to confirm it is just looking at if we sweep lows. And so the low over here is going to be 57.5. Sweeping this low would probably, I think at this stage, it would probably accelerate Bitcoin dominance's fall. This is a pretty large threshold to be passing. We're already in the biggest Bitcoin dominance correction in this bull market so far. and that makes it a serious contender for a possible beginning of alt season. I think the fact that everybody in their nan is still so fucking bearish lines up with this. Because those people are probably not going to be positioned well enough for the alt season to start. And if they're not positioned well enough for the alt season to start, then you best believe it's going to start. So, you know, that's usually how it's gone in my experience. Obviously, that could be wrong, and you should always do your own research. But I'm going to keep that on there for a little bit longer in case someone's slow to read. But yeah, don't be an idiot. You know, I'm just a 24-year-old kid. What do I know after all? But you know, that's my read on this. You know, I definitely think that this is a serious, you know, potential, you know, alt season that we could be looking at. And especially if it feels like, you know, a lot of the market isn't positioned for it, that's only going to make me feel a lot more confident about what I'm saying here. So close to that 50 like mark, ladies and gents. Thanks for pumping them up. If we take a look at altcoins here, you know, Ethereum is not really fully leading this charge. You know, I mean, it's definitely done something. It's definitely contributed to Bitcoin losing its dominance, but Solana has been, you know, waking up quite nicely in comparison. You know, Solana has picked up quite aggressively. We've been talking about Solana for a good few weeks now. I've been telling you guys about how I've been buying it. Below this yellow line, I think most of my buys were, or maybe even around this yellow line. And, you know, we're now nearing a resistance level for Sol BTC. So, you know, I mean, resistance is where rejections happen. You hate to hear it, but it's the truth. Does that mean we're going to get rejected here? I mean, I don't know. We're looking pretty strong right now, you know, but you always look strong leading into resistance levels typically. So that's not much to go off. But, you know, if Bitcoin is truly waking up and, you know, while Bitcoin is waking up, this time dominance is dropping, then, you know, we don't really have a reason to expect that that's going to stop. I don't have a strong opinion here either way. You know, these spot holdings are exactly that. They're holdings. So, you know, you got a long time horizon. You're not going to be worried about, you know, pullbacks. And to be honest, guys, you know, one of the best things Sol BTC could do is come back down to a level like this. This would be a great place to buy. There's so much confirmation here. What we need to understand about market structure is that this coin is obviously one of the most, you know, major coins in the crypto space. I believe we just saw it overtake Binance, didn't we? Saw that in one of the group chats with the boys. And, you know, what have we got here? So coin market cap. Solana flipped BNB right here with a market cap of $130 billion. So, you know, pretty sizable, you know, change there for Solana to flip to flip Binance. Up ahead, we've got Tether, which is a stable, so it doesn't count, and XRP, which is about, you know, 30% larger than Sol by market cap. So, you know, I mean, Sol is doing well. Sol is really, you know, I mean, 17% up on the week compared to 8% for XRP. Now, XRP moves in its own way, but there's definitely headwinds, kind of tailwinds, my bad, kind of supporting Solana here. And, you know, as it's approaching this macro resistance level, I want us to understand the market structure here. You know, Solana managed to consolidate up at, you know, this level basically between, what is this, 0.02 BTC and 0.026, which is a pretty decent range. That's like a 30% range in terms of span, right? Let me just calculate that real quick. Yeah, it's about like a 27% range. And then when it exited this range, it traveled, and it established a new range down here. Now, typically, these are going to be continuation patterns, right? I mean, you kind of consolidate at the top, you drop down, you consolidate again. That obviously just indicates that we're going to do something like this. But if we don't, and if instead we kind of flip that trend and we go the opposite way, then we've seen a reversal. And we've seen a reversal, most importantly, with what's called an accumulation range. Now, these ranges are going to be called accumulation ranges or distribution ranges based on hindsight analysis. I don't want you guys to get confused when you hear other people talking about accumulation distribution ranges. It's anybody's guess. But when you break out of the range, that's going to tell you what it truly was. Because throughout that range, some traders were distributing their coins, other traders were accumulating those same coins. We're only going to label it based on the smart guys, based on the outcome of the chart when that pattern breaks. And in this case, it's broken to the upside. And crucially, it's broken to the upside after setting a double bottom. As far as market structure goes, that means we consolidated inside of a bear trend. We set a double bottom inside of a bear trend. We hit resistance levels like 5 times inside of this bear trend, and we still broke resistance. That tells us a pretty strong story of strength here. And it's very much in line with all of the analysis we've been doing on this YouTube channel pretty much for the last few months, talking about altcoins and how things could start waking up. We said that first it's going to be Bitcoin, then we said it's going to be Ethereum, and then we said it's going to be other big coins like Solana. So we're seeing that take place right now. We've seen Bitcoin lead the charge. We've seen Ethereum take the baton or whatever you call it, take the torch from Bitcoin. And now we're seeing Solana outpace Ethereum as well. To me, this is an indication of that same alt season heating up. Now, does it mean that we're going to keep going up? No, it doesn't mean that. We can be hit with anything crazy at any time. We've been seeing what's going on even just in the United States. There's crazy shit going on right now across the whole world, and unfortunately, it seems very hard to avoid. So, yeah, of course, that can happen to us in crypto as well. And if we, behave like it won't, we're being very, very foolish, very foolishly dangerous, I should add. So, I think for sure, we can get knocked off orbit a little bit here. But, as far as this chart goes, it's undeniable. We consolidated at the top, we travel down, we consolidated at the bottom, and we reverse this trend. So far, we are showing really, really good signs. And the next step that usually happens after this, in my experience of doing this over 8 years, is coins like Cardano and other majors that are lower down in the list picking up. Below Solana, we've got Binance Coin, which is already doing well. We've got Dogecoin, which is up 25% on the week. We've got Tron and Cardano down in position number 10 with a market cap of $32 billion. It's looking good. We've got good, respectable coins in the top 10 right here. You guys know my opinion. All of these coins are shit coins. But as far as making money, there's potential here. And they're standing in good places right now. What I really like about coins like Cardano is that where Solana has already broken out, Cardano hasn't. Cardano is far behind. Not only is Cardano far behind, but its chart has much more potential to go up. I think one of the main reasons it hasn't done that yet is because it's just not as sexy as Solana is. But that doesn't mean its time is going to come. It isn't going to come. To me, these coins only start looking good after they start pumping. A lot of people have this the other way around. I've been seeing charts that say things like, Solana user base is down, therefore Solana's looking bearish. That's a very dangerous mindset to be in. And I understand where it's coming from. It's reasonable. You're saying if there's no users, why would the coin go up in value, right? What I'm saying is that crypto is a market full of, degenerate fucking gamblers, and they're not going to pay attention to something, i.e. use it, until you end up seeing the price going up in some nice, respectable ways. So if you're not getting that, then I think that we're, pretty clearly looking at a situation where you're going to have to see price rising first to get users in. And it's always been that way, right? Those of you that have been around for a little bit of time, you're going to know that all of these coins only get users when they blow up in value, all right? It's when you trigger that FOMO factor, where you've got P&L screenshots on your timeline, on Telegram, on Discord, in your group chats, for a certain ticker, for a certain coin. Ticker means coin. Ticker means this up here, look, where it says ADA BTC. That's a ticker. It means a pair. And when you see that pair all over your timeline with people making money, you're going to get interested in it. And if they have a gimmicky enough platform, then you're going to use it too. People are only using these things to make money. They're not using them because the tech is nice. So XRB and Cardano, ultimate shit coins. They're all ultimate shit coins, bro. It's like, yeah, feels like nobody is in. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Dude, look at the viewership on this channel. And this is not just, a Four Flies thing, right? This channel's shot. And, obviously, we're just not super active here. But, you look across the board, like, viewership for retail is down massively. Too many exit scams? Exactly, dude. And that's what this bull market has turned into, right? This market cycle, especially, like, right after Trump, it was just, all of the fucking degenerates that, like, you know, run scams just blowing up, rugging what they could rug in that period of time, and then retreating back into the shadows where they belong like fucking gremlins, because then they soaked up what the market had to give them. And you know what, mate? Good for them, right? They saw an opportunity and they did something about it. What's not so good is that they had to scam to do it, but I guess that's okay in the crypto world these days. You know, and that's what we've seen. And so I think that's part of it. I think that's a small part of it, though. I think the bigger part of it is just that nobody's actually made money in this bull market cycle. Most people, you know, were not positioned heavy in Bitcoin as Bitcoin's dominance was rising up, which means they got absolutely screwed on alts. I think most of those people, you know, just were not well positioned throughout the bull market and now have a very, very negative take. Jake Paul rugged and that one kid lost like 30 mil. I mean, you know, this is hard, right? Because, like, how are you putting 30 mil or any substantial amount of money into a coin from Jake Paul? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that level of stupidity, you know, is going to catch you out in a ton of different places in life. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be like, you know, crypto's the only place you're going to get smacked in life. Like, if you're that stupid, you know, and I mean this for people, for most people that have lost large amounts. I feel very bad for them, dude. Some of these people have fucking, you know, like, done really bad stuff to themselves, you know, as a result of losing money. I feel bad for them, you know, and at the tax write-off. My man's saying tax write-off. You know, and a lot of those people have been in really, really bad play. But at the same time, what can you do, man? Like, you know, stupidity will get punished everywhere in life. You know, it'll get punished on the fucking street. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not everyone's as lucky, you know, to be able to live in a place like Dubai or a fucking gated community. You know, like, you take that stupid attitude to the street and see what's going to happen to you in, like, you know, 20 minutes or even 2 months. You know, you roll the dice enough times, you're going to, you know, you're going to pay for that. So, you know, that's why I don't really think, you know, the rugs have been as big of an issue as people make them out to be. I think a bigger issue is just that, you know, nobody's been positioned for this bull market. And I think we're going to continue to see that. I think that as these coins really, you know, wake up and blow up, that's going to trigger a lot of that FOMO to kind of come back in. And I think that's going to start doing bits to the market. So that's definitely something to keep an eye out for. Let's look at Solana against the dollar really quick. We'll talk about Bitcoin as well. I haven't talked too much about Bitcoin yet. If I start over again, what would I do? You know, I was asked this question recently, and the answer is very straightforward. I would do exactly what I'm doing right now. Exactly what I'm doing right now. I might dial up the risk a little bit. I might be willing to take a little bit more risk. And it really depends on, like, what starting over again means. Because I've been very vocal about this. I really think that everybody in these markets should have a really, you know, good... Ghost Fry. Should have a really good... you know, kind of stable income source, you know, before, I don't know about before they get into crypto, but certainly, like, while they're in crypto. You know, because that allows you to, you know, first of all, keep dollar cost averaging in, which is way more powerful than most people realize. If you really care about your money, I encourage you to pause the live stream here and run the math on your account balance. You know, if you kind of take a little bit more risk with it, but you know that you're willing to, because it's money that you're willing to lose because you have a paycheck every month. Run the math on what DCA would have done for you in the last 6 months. You know what I mean? In the last 1 year, you know, run the math. Go back for the last 1 year. 1 year is a respectable time. Every single one of you here right now was here a year ago, and most of you would have done a lot better if you dollar cost averaged, you know, a portion of your pay that you're willing to lose into the market. And I think that really helps you weather, you know, the stresses of the market. But it also helps you, you know, maximize your gains out of it as well. You know, a lot of people think that they can just get by making internet money and stuff like that, and I totally understand that. Am I okay? What happened to me? I don't know. What are you pointing to? I think I'm fine. Yeah. So I gained 100 pounds. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Did I? Am I really that fat? I don't think I look that fat. Definitely did gain a little bit, but I've been going to the gym, bro. Like, I think I'm doing a tiny bit better at least. But here's Solana. Solana has managed to break out from this $180 range. It's now punching back up toward all-time highs. on. Okay, you saw me like 2 years ago. Well, 2 years ago I was definitely in better shape. Yes, I was definitely in better shape. But I'm a lot smarter now, if that counts for anything. And yeah, you know, it's getting back up to those all-time highs right now. It's sitting at $240. Its all-time high sits at about 300 flat. So, you know, pretty close from those all-time highs right now for Solana as well. And I think this is where, you know, given that nobody's even talking about it, people spin this a couple different ways, right? Like some people will spin this as though, you know, the markets are, you know, moving up and nobody's participating, so the move is not sustainable. And I don't really understand the logic behind that. Like, what is the logic? Can anyone tell me in the live chat what's the logic behind, you know, arguments basically saying that if the price is going up and nobody's in, then that's actually bearish? You know, I don't. I think it's just nonsense. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think the data agrees with you. Volume's been kind of, you know, I mean, look at this orange line here. This orange line represents the moving average of volume. You know, and it's been trending up. So, I mean, I just, you know, the way I see this, price is going up. No one's really talking about it. I mean, like, what is this going to lead to? It's going to lead to a potential explosion. Potentially, I don't know. It might not happen, but it, you know, it looks like it's leading to an explosion to me. And that explosion will be, you know, a situation where everyone who's been talking shit about the market since 145, you know, is going to FOMO in at 330. You know, which is, by the way, a 2x gain. So it's not like a small mistake. It's a really bad mistake, actually. And I think that's where, yeah, I think that's where a lot of this market is. I really do. I really think that's where a lot of the market is. Ethereum against the dollar. Let's take a look at that. It's bull flagging right now at all-time high levels. Wow. So we didn't really do this last time, did we? You know, we had, I guess it kind of looked like a consolidation event, especially up until like 7th of December, somewhere around here. And we're kind of doing the same thing right now. I mean, look, doing the same thing again for a second time is pretty fucking bullish, you know? It's really a big deal, I think, you know, seeing Ethereum sit up here stable for a second time. I don't think it's going to get punished a second time. That's usually not how it goes. And even if it does get punished a second time, you know, I don't think it can realistically be worse than, you know, something like this or something like this. And both of these would be very palatable drops. I think a lot of people would lose their shit if the market did a bigger drop like this, 45%. But, I mean, it's crypto. So, you know, I think, like, even our worst case scenarios are pretty fucking good right now. I think they're pretty good. As for Bitcoin, in terms of kind of getting above some of its key levels, we covered this a little bit with AL's analysis, but, you know, I think, you know, breaking into this range, getting up to the 120s, you know, totally makes sense. You know, like I said, this is going to be another sideways range for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's bullish. You know, this looks more like a deviation now, which means that this previous range that we had is now back in play, which means we could be looking at a trend a little bit like this as well. All of these things are bullish because they're happening very close to all-time highs while the S&P 500 is moving up. So I think this is definitely something that we've got to be paying attention to. Definitely something that holds bearing in the market. And if Bitcoin is able to, if the S&P is able to continue rallying up over the next week, let's say, I definitely think that could really open the floodgates for Bitcoin to pump up. And we understand how this works for Bitcoin. We don't actually need a lot of buying volume to come in. We just need an absence of selling pressure. So when a little bit more buying volume comes into the market and nobody wants to sell, you have an illiquid market, and illiquid markets allow coins to go up very, very quickly. Ladies and gents, let's see if we can get another pump up on those likes. I want to see what we can hit. Thank you all very much for smashing them up if you have done so already. Yeah, I think that's an important piece for Bitcoin there. And then if Bitcoin does end up breaking the all-time high, you know, I mean, it's, you know, there's always going to be, you know, a couple ways you can kind of extrapolate targets. I think one way would probably be measuring it something a little bit like this. You know, a next reasonable target looks like, you know, 134. This has been, you know, the range of my targets now for, you know, most of this year. You know, I've been saying, you know, 130 to 140K looks like the next kind of reasonable target for Bitcoin. You know, I've certainly been saying that since we entered this range above 100K. And, I'm still seeing all of the signs pointing toward, Bitcoin reaching levels like that. And if that happens while Bitcoin dominance is still dropping, then we are probably going to see some pretty incredible upside for altcoins, I think. If Bitcoin drops with it, and Ethereum is already kind of passing that torch over to smaller coins like Solana. But pardon me. By the way, this doesn't mean that Ethereum is going to be, falling behind now, by any means. I think Ethereum is still potentially even going to be leading the charge. But it is certainly dispersing that strength across the smaller coins in the market now. And as far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly on cue. I think what we're seeing, from people who don't like the market is that they just don't like how slow things have been, which I totally understand. But I mean, dude, whether you like what's going on in the market or not isn't really going to change anything. I think the facts are developing, at a respectable pace, right? You might not like it, and that doesn't matter. But it's moving. It's moving at a consistent pace. We've had the same people giving us the same bearish narratives since at least the 60K range, which is literally 50% lower than where we are now. So forgive me for not taking this shit seriously. Once again, I bring you back to the live translation image. Meme mock-up of AirPods Pro 3 translations. I really think that summarizes how these people have been sounding throughout this entire market cycle. Now, they will flip eventually, and when they flip, and when those people become bullish too, you are going to have a hard time getting off the bullish bandwagon. You've got to make sure that you're keeping everything very rational and that you're viewing everything very objectively, and that more importantly, you're stepping back from the market every now and then, maybe every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it might be, and just understanding how do people view the market right now? How are people talking about the market? How are people behaving in response to the market, and so on and so forth? And I think having that perspective is really going to help us ensure that if things start getting a little bit crazy, that we know that we can kind of, handle it. Now, I saw a really interesting tweet from a brilliant man named 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪. Super interesting guy. I'm going to type his name on screen right here. He is actually a crypto trader. He's been a crypto trader for much longer than I have. Very interesting guy. He's got an interesting personality. I don't know how much of it he shows online, but definitely an interesting personality in person. And I remember the first time I ever met him, we had a heated discussion. But the discussion lasted from like 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. the following day, and it was in Bali. And it was an incredibly heated discussion. I don't think most people could have sustained a conversation with him the way that we did. But I really respect him for it, and I love him. He's an amazing man. And he posted a tweet yesterday which said that it's important, it's pertinent to be closing 1 to 2% of your profits in this bull market as the market keeps raging. And that's, first of all, just breaking down the first bit of it before I tell you the second bit, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I think a lot of people are, I don't know about you guys, how many of the crypto space in general, but a lot of people are seeing some sort of profit right now. And I think probably you guys more than most people in the market. And taking a little bit of profit is always a nice idea. It's always a nice idea. But the second thing he goes on to write is even more powerful, which is that if you're not used to scaling out, 1 to 2% out of the market every now and then, it's going to be very hard to scale out 10 to 20% when the market reaches crazy levels. You need to be in the rhythm of it. You need to build up the discipline of doing it. I know that it sounds silly. I know that it sounds like, you can just wing it and get it done on your own. And you know what, man? If that's your perspective, then good for you. You're a better man than Ty. You're a better man than I am. You're a better man than most professional traders who do this for a living that make incredible sums of money. You're better than all of them. And clearly you are. You know better than all of us. But, and I don't put myself in the class of extremely successful traders. Like I said, I'm just a dude. But, Ty has a point. And, having been through many bull markets, I can definitely say that, yo, what's up, Zemaine? How you doing, Zemaine? Yo, guys, anyone in London, if you want to get a really, really good haircut, you got to check out West and Hunter. These guys are they're a great barbershop. in West London, and run by an amazing guy. If you're there, tell 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 that you came from Sammy. Super cool guy, and incredible haircuts as well. Decent location in London. Many of you guys will be able to get there. Ty, I think, is a brilliant person. And and I think what he's saying is very important. If you're not in the flow of taking profits out of the market, you will get punished for it. It's not a matter of when. It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. Having been through so many bull markets, if I did this better, and it's compounds, right? Like it'll get more and more severe. Your consequences of not doing it. It'll get more and more severe the longer you are in the market. Every additional 1 or 2% that you secure now is going to be worth a lot more money in the future. So, it's important to do things right, from the beginning. And and that's why somebody asked me earlier on, what would I do if I started from fresh? I can't do anything other than what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing right now, I feel, is the safest way I can quickly grow my portfolio. And safety is so important in these markets because without it, you will lose your bankroll. So, when you lose your bankroll, you no longer have chips to play with. So I think that's really important. Ladies and gents, if we got some questions, I'll take them now. Otherwise, we'll probably be wrapping up this stream around about now. I do want to point out some of the phenomenal links in the description right here. We have got for you guys some really cool offers if you are interested in taking advantage of them. If we bring it over to the description right here, you've got Bybit, which is still by far the best exchange in the game as far as I'm concerned, also a long-time partner of the channel. Levex, giving you a very competent trading platform that you're already used to, and with some very aggressive bonuses. Check them out if you're not from a restricted region. And 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪, check these guys out. If you guys live, I think, like primarily in the West, because I don't think these guys are great at servicing other regions. I'm not sure about that, though. You'll have to check with them. But certainly if you're in the West, meaning, Europe, USA, Australia, stuff like that, 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 is going to be a great option for you to literally buy and sell with an off-ramp, with an on-ramp, and it's a highly personalized service. Check out this link below. I've personally put significant volumes through them, and it's been flawless. I really like their platform. I've been using OTC providers for many years, and 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗢𝗪 definitely look great. So check them out if you think that's something that you'd be interested in. They'll service pretty much any volume. That means, a couple hundred, couple thousand, all the way up to, millions as well in trading volume, and pretty decent fees as well. So check them out if you think that would be interesting to you as well.